Hi, my name is Dennis. I'm an alcoholic. What I'm going to be talking about is the topic, the question, does the shoe fit? And this really has to do with the idea, I know some of you are trying to question whether or not you're an alcoholic or chemically dependent. And that's the topic. That's some of the things that we're going to talk about. First of all, probably one of the most common ways of describing or referring to chemical dependency or alcoholism, and this is an old concept, is called the Jellinek chart, indicating there's a way down and a way up in terms of chemical dependency. Now, in actual practice, it's not a nice smooth line, a way down and a way up. It's kind of a jagged line all over the place. So I might be coming down in my chemical dependency, and all of a sudden I get into this position, and it looks like I'm really doing quite good. And people will say, look how good Dennis is doing. You know, let's say I quit for Lent or something, which I did enough times. No, I couldn't do that in the later years, but so look how good Dennis is doing. Well, what's happened is I'm still progressing down, but it seems to be that I'm doing better. And this is kind of like trying to control a case of diarrhea with willpower. You ever try to control a case of diarrhea with willpower? Yeah, it doesn't work, right? So what happens is, invariably, I'm going to keep coming down in my dependency. So what the important thing is here is that it's a progressive disease. The disease concept, and we hear a lot about that, meaning only that it gets worse, so it's progressive. Here, if we're at point A, there's no question about the fact that unless something happens to intervene here, we're going to be at point B. It's automatic. Being at point A is like being a little bit pregnant. Some things are going on from here to here. One of these things is control. The issues of control. Now, of course, I've never met anybody that's chemically dependent that didn't have denial. That's certainly one of the conditions. That's the name of the game. It goes with the territory, denial. So I don't know that really, or not really aware that I'm unable to control my use. Now, if I talk about a story that happens to be specific to me, it's only my story. How many stories do you have? So, in other words, we could say, well, I wasn't that bad, or I never did that. Shit, I don't have a problem, right? But I remember the first time that I was out of control. Do you? Do you remember what happened? And I can remember back at age 16 years old, the first time I was out of control. And I remember the story. I'm from the Iron Range, and up there we could go to a neighboring town, and for 10 cents we could get a beer. And we could play pool and stuff with the big guys, and drink some beer and eat popcorn and stuff. It was great. A few glasses of beer. After a while, it wasn't a few glasses of beer, of course, it was a few pitchers of beer. I can relate to having one drink as long as it's a 55-gallon drum and a canoe paddle to mix it with, right? So, you know, why stop with a few beers, right? Let's have a few pitchers of beer. Well, my buddy and I, on the way home one night, practiced teeing off on the windshield of my 1936 Plymouth to see who could hit it the hardest. He said, well, that's a stupid thing to do. Well, of course it's a stupid thing to do, right? But the euphoria and so forth. Well, I broke the windshield of my car, my 1936 Plymouth. And I broke it pretty badly. It looked terrible. And the air was coming through and so forth. And there was only one other 1936 Plymouth in the whole county. And it happened to be in my hometown. and it wasn't used that much. It was sitting kind of in a field behind this guy's place, but he used it once in a while. And I justified it that, well, he doesn't need his car that much anyway, so what I'll do is I'll steal the windshield, right? Now, where did all this start? It started with the fact that I was out of control and I broke the windshield, right? Now, I was stealing the windshield, and while I was there, I thought I might as well steal the dashboard too, because I had a bunch of shorts underneath the dash of this car, and I had a penny under there, and those wires were burning quite often. It smelled terrible, and the car was missing there because I'd had some fires under the dash. So I needed a new dash with some new wiring. So what did I do? I laid under there half the night, and I took out all those little bolts and screws and everything, and I took the entire mechanism, all the wires and everything out too. Might as well, right? Well, it didn't take much of a detective to figure out how many 1936 Plymouths there are and who would need these parts, right? So I got busted. And I had to put all that stuff back. Well, that's an early consequence. And there's a lot of consequences between age 16 and I sobered up when I'm age 40. There's a lot of consequences. Any time that we say, what the hell's the matter with me anyway? What did I do that for? Or we say, God, get me out of this one, I won't do it again. Or especially any time that we say, I'm sorry for doing that. Anytime those kind of things happen, it takes a chip out of our self-worth and our dignity. Anytime I tell you I'm sorry for doing something when I'm using, it takes a chip out of my dignity. And there's one hell of a lot of I'm sorry's between age 16 and age 40. There's all kinds of stories, hundreds of stories, hundreds of what's the matter with me anyway. Can you remember the first time that you paid a consequence or had a result from your using? Something that caused you to say, oh God, what did I do that for? What's happening further down in here is I'm going to have some guilt about some of the things I'm doing. I've got a way out of that guilt. I've got a relief from that guilt. And what is it? Anybody? How can I get out of my guilt? Drink some more, right? I can feel less guilty. I can feel less lonely. I can feel less of anything. All I have to do is drink some more or use some more, as the case may be. And so then I drink, and then I do something that results in some more consequences, right? Consequences. And then I feel guilty again, and then I drink some more. And it's a vicious kind of a circle. What I'm doing here is I'm medicating some emotions. Why do we use anyway, any chemical? Why? By the time I figure out why I'm an alcoholic, I'm going to be drunk. I don't need to analyze all the reasons why. What I need to know is some of the things that happen to me when I do. For example, it's not as important how much I drank or used, how often, how long, or why. See, the why. I'm not going to figure out the why. I don't need to. All I need to know is that my name is Dennis and I'm an alcoholic. What's important is some of the things that are happening to me here I can relate to. And these occurrences keep happening. Went up to be a best man at a wedding. Got drunk the night before. Of course. We're going to get drunk the night before because the wedding's the next day. A lot of us drank all night, and I went home and came in on my hands and knees. And my parents looked at me and said, key thing, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Look at you. I went to bed and I missed the wedding. Right? Do you think my parents went to the wedding? I was best man. I didn't make the wedding because they couldn't get me up. They were invited too. Of course they wouldn't go, right? Why? They were ashamed of me. Unconditional love, we can deny somebody else's problem too, somebody we love and somebody we're close to, with unconditional love. We can deny all that. But, and what happened is, do you think I went to the reception afterwards when I finally got up? No, no, of course. Why? Because I was ashamed of myself. That's why. I got 7 miles away to Grand Rapids, and what do you think I did when I got to Grand Rapids? I drank. I drank. And I struck up a meaningful conversation with a guy at the municipal liquor store about fishing. And like a long-lost buddy or a friend, we had a big conversation. It was just wonderful. And what happened after that? I'm paying more consequences. And again, it's not, please, it's not my stories that are the important thing. The important thing is, can you relate? You know, a drunkalogue. The difference between a drunkalogue and sharing our experiences is if we share the pain. I like to hear people's experiences. What I don't like to hear is people sitting around talking about who can outdo the other one in terms of how bad we were, right? Share the pain. I drank over in St. Paul every morning, went over and I hung out at a bar there. And do you think if I walked in that bar in the morning and the people say, "How you doing today, Dennis?" I'd say, "You know what, guys? Today I'm living with a lot of fear inside. My guts are turned up and I just don't know what to do." Shit, they'd move down 4 bar stools to get away from me, right? Because I'm talking about feelings. I need to share the pain. To be vulnerable is to be lovable, and I need to tell you when I'm hurting. Because I'm not going to get any help if I don't. I'm going to isolate myself and be self-contained. So it doesn't matter necessarily, it's some indication of how much you use, right? How often. Can somebody use every 6 months and be chemically dependent? Alcoholic? Hell yes. Maybe the diarrhea example again, I don't know, but how long? I've work with some folks that are as young as 10, 12 years old. Why? I don't know why. I just know that I am. Denial. One of the key things here is the denial, because it's the name of the game. It goes with the territory. I can rationalize, minimize, justify. I've got all these things in my denial bag, and it's not bad because it's the name of the game. It's not a bad thing. It's just, if you confront me about my using, you say, "You know what? I think you're an alcoholic." Oh, God. I had a student one time, the only job I had left is teaching at Metro State, one night a week, and a student said, "Can I buy you a drink after class?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And so we went down and he ordered a Coke and I ordered whatever it was, and he said, "Now, I have to tell you, Dennis, that I think that you've got a drinking problem." And he said, "I don't care if you fail me or not, and I've been thinking about this all quarter. I learned a lot from your class and so forth, but I think you've got a drinking problem." And I never forget I could hear that from my wife all the time. "I think you got a drinking problem, I think you got a drinking problem." You know, that's in one ear and out the other, but I'll never forget that person that took the risk to tell me that. I don't remember his name to this day, but I said, "Well, I got the kind of job that I entered." Oh, I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Every time you come to class, you've been drunk, and a couple of times you could hardly talk." So he had the data, right? And I said, "Well, I've got the kind of job where I entertain a lot at lunch." Okay. What do you think he said? What would you say to me if you had my number and I told you something like that? "I entertain a lot at lunch." What? No, he didn't tell me that. "Bullshit." Yeah, that's what he said. "Bullshit. Bullshit." And then I went, "Oh, God." You know, no, what am I going to say, right? But then he said, "You know," he said, "I got to tell you that I've been sober for 2 years, and I go to 2 or 3 AA meetings a week, and I got my wife and my kids back and my family. I'm getting my college degree." He told me all this neat stuff. And he said, "If you ever think that you've got a problem or you want some help or something, will you please call me?" I said, oh, yeah, yeah, sure. And I remember thinking, get away from me, man. Get out the Tamburitzas, right? I'm Tamburitsans, you know, because... And he left. I was relieved. And what do you think my feeling was at the time? What was going through here from a feeling standpoint when he left? Beyond being relieved, he left. Shame, yeah. No, I didn't. I kind of ruled out he understood anything. At that time. Now I don't. But fear. The number one feeling problem for most people who are chemically dependent, I think, is fear. Scared the shit out of me. I thought he was going to tell on me and I'll get fired from this job too. I've been fired from 5 jobs. So the rationalizing and the minimizing and the justifying, it's the name of the game. It's not bad, it's not good, it's just there. Why is the denial, this is so great. It's so great. Somebody said, do you think I was going to tell that individual, well, thanks for telling me that. And call my wife and say, you know what I just found out about myself? You're not going to believe this. I'm an alcoholic. Right? No. The reason why this is so powerful and so great is because the love affair is so great. It's a tremendous love affair. This love affair that I've got going with my chemical is more powerful than any love I could ever have. It's more powerful than my love of my kids, or my family, or my parents, or my wife, or my friends, or myself. But I'm not in touch with that I've got something that powerful, cunning, baffling, and powerful going on in my life? Of course not, because this is in the way and I can't get through it. And I haven't had any consequences or any reason to get through this. So I just keep going. The love affair is tremendously powerful. If somebody said, Dennis, I tell you what, I've got a secret for you. I think string beans are your problem. So if you don't eat any more string beans, you can save your life. If you continue to eat those string beans, you're going to end up with cirrhosis of the liver, fired from 5 jobs, divorce, tremendous relationship problems, financial problems, legal problems, spiritual problems, emotional problems, and your whole life will be shit. There. Now, all you got to do is not eat string beans. I said, God, thanks for telling me that. I don't necessarily believe it, but shit, I'm not going to eat any more string beans, I'll tell you that. Right? You'd substitute the word booze, in my case, for string beans, and what's going to happen? I'm going to try to use some humor with you first. Yeah, come on, let's. And if that's not working, I can go from humor to hostility in the same breath almost. And I can rule you out and write you off and get away from me with that stuff. And I'm going to get angry. And all of these situations in here, and how do we do that, doesn't mean, again, that it's an intentional thing. I didn't start off at age 16 saying, you know what I want to be when I grow up? I want to be an alcoholic. I want to see how many people's lives I can screw up. That's my goal. And am I going to have any kids? Yeah, if I do, I'm going to screw their life up too. That's my goal. No, that's not how it happens. It just happens. The important thing is, what now? There's one other way to express this, maybe. First of all, what we've been talking about here is that it's progressive. It's a progressive disease. If I talked to you about control, and I said, do you ever have some situations where you started to drink or use and everything, and you just kept doing it because you just wanted to keep doing it and you got kind of out of control? Say, oh yeah, I can relate to that. Ever stop for 1 and 2 or 3 and end up coming home at 2 in the morning? You ever do that? Say, yeah, I've done that. See, this is a little easier to get a hold of, this control, and that it's a progressive kind of thing. It gets worse. What's more difficult is that this is a primary condition or disease, if you will. It's primary. This, you need to do some work on this one. You need to do work on all of it, I think. But this one takes some thought and some work. The other condition is that this is a terminal disease. Kills. Kills. Anybody here know anybody that's not here today because of using? Anybody? Show of hands? Yeah. Me, certainly. Directly because of their using, they're not here. Right? Yeah. I know a lot of people like that. My mother drank herself to death, and I know what that's like. Within this last year, I lost a 17-year-old grandson to this disease, to using. He's dead because of using. Now, terminal part of this disease is probably the least likely in terms of us getting a hold of a reason why to change. You know, if I tell you, if you don't quit using, you're going to die. You say, well, yeah, if I don't quit smoking, I'm going to die, and say, I'll quit someday, right? Or the rationale for staying sober is if you don't quit using, this is what's going to happen to you. I know a lot of people that aren't here anymore because of this disease and because of their using. When in my high school class, we lost in one night of playing chicken. There was 8 people killed, 8 kids. Made the front page of the Minneapolis paper. 3 of them were from my class. It was in the spring of the year. We were going to graduate in 2 weeks. 3 of us not there anymore. Small high school. That was sad. At the funerals and so forth, and the talk amongst the rest of us were the conclusion from all of that, the lesson, and that was back in the 50s. James Dean and stuff was, popular. And Chicken was in one of the James Dean movies. And these guys in 2 separate cars were playing chicken. And the conclusion that we were making from all of this is, God, don't anybody ever play chicken again, right? No more chicken, right? Nobody's going to be playing chicken. Any discussion about the fact that most of the kids were drunk? No, the discussion was about chicken. I went to a funeral from a good friend of mine, and his son broke his neck cliff diving in shallow water. And a lot of young people, 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old folks there. And the whole group was, or most of them, I think, was stoned, smoking pot and drinking, right? Things don't change. This is 30 years later, 35 years later. The discussion then was don't cliff dive, okay? Nothing to do with don't be using, okay? And what happened afterwards? It broke my friend's heart because the whole group went out and partied. Sad. So the terminal, of course, needs to be discussed, but I think the important thing for you to take a look at, and it takes some work, is this right here, that this is a primary condition. And I want to talk about that a little bit. If we take the tolerance here, this is a tolerance curve, let's say. And I can start off here, as I mentioned, at age 16 years old, and be drinking some 3-2 beer. And it's working for me, because I've never drank before. Now, why do people use anyway? Why do we use? Sure, we use because it works. It works, that's all. I mean, it works for us. So it worked for me at age 16. 3-2 beer. Now, 3-2 beer is what? What do we call 3-2 beer? Water? What kind of water? Piss water. There you go. Yeah, piss, right? 3-ish. Shit, 3-2 beer. I'll drive to Hudson, Wisconsin on a Sunday if I run out of beer. Man, I'm not going to, I want some strong beer. And then most of you maybe are too young, but do you remember back in the 50s they had that particular, I don't want to talk about connoisseurs of different kind of beer or anything, but that particular beer in the 50s, it came in little cans about that big. died. Oh, God, it was the Green Death. Yeah, the Green Death worked, too. That worked better than strong beer, right? Now, I need more and more. Now, let's talk just for a minute about other drugs other than alcohol. We have more in common than we do different. You cocaine people using other drugs. Our motivations are kind of... If somebody told me, Dennis, don't drink all 17 of those drinks tonight. You don't need 17 drinks tonight when you go out. All you need is this one super drink. And they slid me a glass of something that really looked like a super drink, right? You don't need 17. This will do it for you, man. Do you think I would have said, oh, no, I don't want to do that? I'd say, hey, lay it on me. Let's try that and see what it's about, right? We can become connoisseurs of different kinds of drugs, move from one to the other to get that ideal situation for ourselves. When I was growing up, we had booze. There was a movie out once called Reefer Madness. You know, that's that movie, Reefer Madness. What the hell is this now? Reefer Madness. Wow, these people are nuts, right? Well, shit, reefer is, you know, but we have more in common than we do. Our feelings are the same. Motivations are the same. Recovery is the same. But, so whatever my limit is here, let's say it's a quarter or a fifth, it doesn't matter what my limit here eventually is. I'm going to reach some kind of a optimum tolerance. It's kind of my limit where I can walk around at. And in my case, maybe a fifth or quarter. It doesn't matter, again, how much. And doesn't matter how long and how often. Now, what does matter is somewhere along the line here, this is like a cliff. So I can reach this tolerance up here, and 2 or 3 months later, which happened in my case, I'm puking on about 3 or 4 drinks. I've got the dry heaves, or not dry, I'm throwing up. And people have got about 5, 6 drinks sitting in front of me, and I'm back in the men's room, you know, I go, oh, God, you know, and they come out and they say, you chicken shit, come on, drink up, man. See, now all of a sudden, my tolerance is no longer a fifth a day, is it? I mean, my limit is a lot less than that. And somebody says, hey, look at Dennis, how good he's doing. Man, he used to be a heavy drinker, now he's only drinking a pint or so, right? So, again, that's not the relevant part. What the part is that I can come falling down off this cliff, and will, and I reach another tolerance back down here, so I can be where I was on 3-2 beer again. Again, some fear motivation, that's a dangerous type thing. A little cirrhosis here going on, or something else. Right? What the important thing in terms of primary is this. Through here somewhere, what we have is every significant area of our life. Relationships, financial, physical, spiritual, job, career, school, emotional. Now, if I had the ability to go back in time several years and take this pen and go up and tell you where I was in my life, here's what I would tell you. That my relationships, and this is a minus over here and this is a plus over here, that my relationships were shit. So here's where I am. Plus, minus, plus. Parents ashamed of me. My wife had a curfew on me, had to be home by 6:30 at night. Divorce papers in the drawer, ready to go. 6:30 for this kid. Think I'm going to tell my friends at the bar, hey, I got to go now because if I'm not home by 6:30, I'm in deep shit trouble. I'm going to end up in divorce court. They go, oh, you chicken shit, right? So I drank a lot during the day. Relationships. Terrible shape. Why? Because I was an alcoholic. I don't need any more reason than that. You know, I can have a geographical escape. Say, you know what I need? I need a new wife. Because if I had a new wife, things would be great, right? So what I need is a new wife. It's like saying, what I need is to go to Denver. Because if I get to once I get to Denver, Colorado, things are going to be just great. The only problem is I bring myself along to Denver, don't I? And I bring myself into the next relationship too, don't I? Relationships way over here on the negative side. You know, I could sit home during the day and you say, how could somebody do this? I'm not this bad. I wasn't this bad. I don't tell you this to tell you how bad I was. It's not important. But in my case, I could sit home and my wife worked and I could watch game shows. If somebody won on the game show, I'd get excited for them. $10,000 Pyramid, The Joker's Wild. I could tell you all the names. The Price is Right. 5 or 6 game shows during the morning. And drink with the window shades pulled. What a wonderful existence. You see, here's what happens. It's somebody's chemically dependent. The walls come in to where we're functioning in a very narrow area of reality. And the walls keep coming in and keep coming in to where we're in a very narrow area of functioning. We have a few friends, not necessarily friends. How many of my friends do you think wished me well when I went to treatment? Huh? We have a few acquaintances. It's a small group we hang out with. Not too many interests or hobbies and so forth. What happens is eventually we will develop all the symptoms of acute agoraphobia. I don't use a big word like that to scare you and say, oh, okay, I don't want agoraphobia, so I'm not going to use it anymore, right? But we function in a very narrow area of reality eventually. When we get straight, what happens is the walls start going out and we start to expand our horizons and our interests and so forth. And we're functioning in a broader area. My reality when I was using and sitting home watching game shows, if somebody won, I'd get excited for him. One time I stayed home to watch this guy. He's going for the largest amount ever won on this game show. God, it was exciting. Just tremendously. I really got into it. And they asked him one of the final questions to win all this money and set a new record. Isn't that wonderful? And he didn't know the answer. And I sat there and I said, you dumb son of a bitch. You blew it. Right? And I got mad, angry. You see, my reality is the television set. That was my reality. What's going on out here? No. Then there was that day where there was the fateful knock on the door. And I kept the shades pulled and so forth because we were behind on the rent. And I didn't notice that the landlord had pulled up in the driveway. And I see the knock on the door, and I look in the mirror, and I see that he's outside the door. And I quick jumped up, and I ran in around the corner. And I got up against the wall around the corner like this. And I'm standing there, and he's knocking on the door. And then there wasn't any longer. He quit knocking. And I thought, well, maybe he's gone. And I kind of peeked around the corner like this to see if he had left, and he had his hands up on the window like this. He was looking in there, and he looked at me, and he said, I see you in there. I know you're in there. What a wonderful existence. Wonderful existence. Afraid. And then I had to go talk to him, about the rent. So, financial. Oh, terrible. If the telephone would ring, my wife and I would argue about who's going to answer the phone. Who do you think we thought was on the other end? A bill collector. Yeah. By the time we quit arguing about who's going to answer the phone, they'd hung up. Physical. Again, one of the least reasons for most people to be alarmed. Physical. Terrible shape physically. Spiritually bankrupt. Fired. Oh, I forgot one. Emotional wreck. I'll talk about that later. But legal. Plus, over here. Not bad. No DWIs. How about that? Never got a DWI. Therefore, none of this fits, right? Because I've got one over here. All the rest of them are over here, right? But I've got, right? I never had DWI. When I went into treatment, Meadowbrook Treatment Center, terrible place in the 70s, tough place. Treatment centers don't do that kind of thing anymore, that they did to us. Right? But they said, what are you doing here? And I went through about 5 minutes explanation of what I was doing there. In this 5 minutes, I said that I'd never got a DWI and my wife wasn't divorcing me. When I finished, the counselor, John S., beautiful man with a big white beard, he said, is that it? I said, yeah. And he said, I don't want to repeat what he told me when he threw me out. Right? It was pretty nasty, that's all I can say. Pretty nasty. When he told me, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. And I said, well, what are you doing this for? And he said, I tell you what, I'll give you 24 hours to come up with some better bunch of bullshit than that. Right? And if you can't, don't bother coming back. Right? So then I had to do a little thinking. But this probably is in terms of getting a hold of the concept, does the shoe fit? Probably the most important area is the getting in touch with how primary is this. Think about the first step, the unmanageability, and take a look at the first step, but this primary part of it. How has your using affected your life? Somebody said to me once, Dennis, why did you sober up? And I said, oh, a lot of reasons. But it was really getting in touch with the effect I had on other people, and especially my kids. It wasn't easy to sit there or at one time listen to the kids tell me they were afraid of me. And we have 12 kids, hers, mine, and ours. And most of them were afraid of me. And if you say, what kind of dad are you? I'm a great dad, right? I'm a great dad. No, I wasn't a great dad. But I wasn't in touch with that either. Getting in touch with the effect we've had on other people. Getting in touch with all this. Where's our life at? And I certainly wouldn't expect anybody coming into treatment to be able to really go up and point out, maybe there are people that can do that. I couldn't. That's all I can say. Exactly where my life was, and I don't know exactly where it was to this day, in terms of all these key areas. How had my using affected my life? And I need to hear you talk about your experiences, because unless I could hear you talk about your experiences and strength and hope, there's no way I could maintain sobriety. I need to hear your stories. I need to be able to relate to you to do that. And if you're questioning, am I or aren't I chemically dependent, sit down and take some time and go through the first step. Spend some time on it. Make the effort. It's more important. The effort is the important thing, not the outcome. We're only responsible for the effort and not the outcome. Please make the effort, I urge you to. And if the shoe seems that it might fit, try it on. Try it on. And as with a new shoe, it won't feel too comfortable at first, right? But the longer you wear it, the more comfortable it becomes. And after a while, it would take somebody working the beat hell to pry it off of you, because it becomes so comfortable for you. And the disease is so powerful, cunning, and baffling that it's going to take some time and some open-mindedness and some patience and some commitment. Bring the body and the mind will follow. And I'm reminded about that every time I go to an AA meeting, and I get there and I sit down, and after all of the AA meetings I've been to, it occurs to me again that I really need to be there and how much I need to be there. But it happens after I get there so many times, and how much I can get out of it. Just that open-mindedness. Treatment is only a foothold. There's nothing magic about treatment. It's only a foothold. Where it's really happening would be in the AA, in my opinion, and from my experience, what works is in the AA, the NA, the CA communities, and getting involved. That's what will really help you be in touch with, does the shoe fit? I only hope for all of you that you put the shoe on, see what it's like, and make that effort. Thank you. Okay. Any, Greg, was that?